All right. Good to see everybody. Today, the topic is Believe Like a Wolf. And this is Believing Lesson 3. And the reintroduction of alpha thoughts will return our believing to its natural state of extreme abundance. Self-talk is the building blocks of our believing. And today we're going to get a few pointers about the proper power, placement, and percentage of the words we need to speak to ourselves in order to really believe. Today we learn to believe like a wolf. And because self-talk is so important but so hidden from view, let's narrow down that topic even a little bit further today. And I'm going to show you how the reintroduction of special power words, of apex thoughts into our personal ecosystems will allow our believing to reclaim its turf. And once these specific words are set free into our inner awareness in the proper amounts, they will change the environments of our brains. It's all about words. Romans 12:2 from the New Living Translation says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will know what God wants you to do, and you will know how good and pleasing and perfect His will really is." You know, we have to change our thinking. And the way we think, our believing, is more closely aligned to the spiritual than you'll ever, or I shouldn't say than you'll ever realize, because that's exactly what we want to realize. It's sort of like the stick on a lollipop. I mean, you hang on to it, it's in there. It's not the same thing. You don't eat that usually, you see, but you hang on to it. And that is that self-talk. That is believing. That's how you hang on and get inside the promises of God. You know, we're changed as we change the way we think of ourselves through godly self-talk. And as we consistently release those apex thoughts into the ecosystem of our brain, they will do their intended job, and they will clean house. You just got to get the ball rolling, folks, and I think you'll understand this. A few specific words or phrases placed in our minds at the right time and in the right amount will totally change the landscapes of our believing. They will do the work. A balanced habit of thought. Yellowstone Park in all its wild glory wasn't always in as beautiful a balance as it is right now. And throughout the 1800s and into the early 1900s, settlers moved west and they started ranching. They got land, they started raising cattle and sheep in those areas. And to keep their livestock safe, as well as to keep their profits intact, they killed off the wolf. And in 1926, the last howl of a wolf was silenced in Yellowstone. And the ranchers thought they had eliminated, they thought that the elimination of the wolf was a great success and the solution to all their problems. The problem was now that after all these wolves were eliminated, the elk population grew so large that they changed the entire ecosystem of Greater Yellowstone National Park. And elk and bison, they overgrazed in those meadows, and the coyote population exploded to fill in the gap that the wolves left. And most of the small game disappeared. And even the look of Yellowstone changed. But it wasn't for the better. And scientists and environmentalists, they scratched their heads what to do. They all knew what to do, but they didn't want to do it because of politics. And the same is true of humanity. Humans try to solve one problem, but seem to create another one in the same process. It just keeps going that way. Oh, the humanity. Reestablish the ecosystem of our believing. And today I'm going to use two wolf examples to flesh out one point. And together the examples are going to help us understand the necessity of reintroducing apex thoughts into the environments of our minds. You know, like a single roaming wolf will make no ecological impact, a single yet powerful thought released into the wilderness of our minds will do very little to change our life. Similar to the 31 wolves that completely changed the landscape of Yellowstone National Park, a few select packs of dominant thoughts will reestablish the ecosystem of our believing. Now to get to our example, one will focus on a single lone wolf and the other on the power of the pack. So example one, the lone wolf. In December 2011, a 2-year-old wolf with a tracking collar meandered from northeastern Oregon to northern California, which is a journey of about 300 miles. And once in northern California, the wolf named OR7 moved about 250 miles each month. That means he zigzagged over 3,000 to 4,000 miles around northern California between 2012 and 2013. Today, Wolf OR7 is the most famously ordinary wolf in the world. He's done little more than roam for 3 years, but environmentally he's changed nothing. He has no pack, no mate, no offspring, but he does have a following. And he was named Journey by a group of school children who followed him online. And OR7 has recently, just in the past few weeks, crossed back into Oregon and seems to be heading back to the area of his birth. Unknowing to him, his pack was decimated. They all scattered. And there might be a couple left. And a pack of wolves typically is a genetic pack. It's 5 or 6. Usually they're genetically linked except for the alpha male and the alpha female. And then they just stay with each other. And if they want to find a mate, then they're going to have to go off and start their own pack, which is probably what OR7 was doing, unsuccessfully. There hadn't been a wolf in California since 1929. So he was sort of barking up the wrong tree. And so now wolf's paw print, these aren't little creatures. Some of them have even been tagged at 140 pounds. They can be huge. An average weight of a male is 120, which is what a teenage boy might be, or a young lady. So, it's something. In reality, Journey, or OR7, didn't do anything of significance. One lone wolf will never make an impact on the greater environment any more than one good thought or one good go-to verse will change an entire life. One lone wolf can't change the environment any more than one lone thought can change the landscape of our minds. That go-to verse that many of us use during difficult times may help us get through a day or a couple of days, but it will never change your life. We need variety. We need a pack of thoughts to help take down the really tough problems. We need multiple verses, positive affirmations, or quotes, or positive adjectives to reset our mindset. We need something greater than ourselves to make ourselves greater. 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. See, every thought should be thought about before we release it into the environment of our lives or speak it out into the world. Think what's so tough about that job? Well, and if you think about that job, is every thought, is it good or is it evil? And you should weigh this before you release it. How will it affect me? See, like if you put somebody from, let's say, Pack A in Canada and you dumped it into an area of Wyoming where Pack B was, what's going to happen to that wolf? He's going to get killed. He's going to get killed. It's just the way it is. There's a way to do it. Lead every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. You don't just release any old thing. It's the right thoughts. We talked about self-talk. Talk the right stuff at the right time, in the right amounts. How will it affect me if I let it run free in my mind? How will it affect others if I release through speech or writing or text or email or better yet, Facebook? Just think about it. If we just think about what we're thinking about, our life will be different. That's controlling every thought, bringing every thought into captivity. If you only have one or two go-to verses to combat the ever-encroaching and ever-munching and ever-gnawing enemy that constantly attacks us or attacks the environment of our lives, we're not going to be ready for that. We're not going to be up to the task. We will be up to the task if we control what we think. Every thought. And I know it's not easy if you're trained one way and all this stuff is in our heads. It's hard. This is not like I said last week, this is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, leading captive every thought. It's every thought. But once you start weighing that, it changes. It becomes a habit. Now, we're going to read that same section from another version. And I love how the different angles of thought, that different versions employ. 2 Corinthians 10, 3-6 from the Message. And I quote, "The world is unprincipled. It's dog eat dog out there. The world doesn't fight fair, but we don't live or fight our battles that way. Never have, never will. The tools of our trade aren't for marketing or manipulation, but they're for demolishing that entire massively corrupt culture. We use our powerful God tools for smashing warped philosophies, tearing down barriers erected against the truth of God, fitting every loose thought and emotion and impulse into the structure of life shaped by Christ. Our tools are ready, at hand for clearing the ground of every obstruction and building lives of obedience into maturity." That's all. That's our job. I love that. It's like, wow. That's quite a statement. If we expect to advance in life, or simply take back our life, or take back that part of our life that seems to have been munched away, we got to think about what we're thinking about. That's how we control our self-talk and hone our believing. The power of the pack. After the last wolf was killed in 1926, Yellowstone began to have huge environmental problems. The aspens and willows and berry bushes were chewed down to a nub by the gnawing elk population. Even hunters couldn't keep the numbers down anymore. Bears, beavers, birds, and badgers were becoming less and less noticeable by tourists. And many groups lobbied for the reintroduction of the wolf back into the park. And this was to help reduce the elk and buffalo population who were chewing the park down to nothing. And after years of political pandering, in the mid-90s, the state of Wyoming finally imported 31 wild wolves from Canada, from specific packs. And they put them in huge fenced areas, many acres. And the wolves quickly split into their respective packs. And then, after a period of time, they took down the fences because the wolves wouldn't go in and out the fence that humans went in and out. So they just tore down the back of the fence, and the wolves split. And then they found the areas they liked and that they were able to protect. See, researchers had learned the unhealthy hazards of trying to release single wolves into a new environment. And many times the stress of being alone without a pack would set them up for failure. And many wolves would try to head back to where they were born, or they would die trying. And my point here is pack mentality. We need to introduce not just one or two good thoughts into the repertoire of our minds. We need the power of the pack. We need a pack of alpha thoughts. You're going to have to find them. What is an alpha thought? An alpha or apex thought is one that brings things back to their godly intent. What brings you back to your godly purpose? Yeah, that's an alpha thought. 1 John 3:8 says, "For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil." You know, John 3:8 from the Weymouth New Testament says, "The Son of God appeared for the purpose of undoing the work of the devil." Undoing. Jesus Christ is the devil's undoing. We need the thoughts in our head that will be the undoing of what's held us captive for so long. The positives you introduce to yourself will undo the destruction of the enemy. 1 John 3:8 from Young's literal translation states, "For this was the Son of God manifested, that he might break up the works of the devil." Break it up. You know, I remember near where my brother has a cabin near Kachara, Colorado, there was so many beaver there. And they had all these beaver dams all over the place. Well, I went back this fall, Josephine and I, to take pictures when the colors were changing, and there were no more beaver. Somebody had blown up all the dams, had torn them all down. Well, the beavers are somewhere else, I'm sure. But they destroyed the beaver dams. They tore them down because they want to sell the property so people can build cabins on, of course. But the benefits of pack mentality. You know, once the wolves broke into their respective packs, led by the alpha male and the alpha female, once they found a territory they could control, they unknowingly set things straight in Yellowstone. The elk moved back deeper into the thick woods, and the aspen and the willow and the berry bushes began to grow. And there had... now there was food and there was building materials so the beavers could make their dams. With these dams, fish and amphibians came back, as did raptors or birds of prey to prey on that stuff. The coyote population was cut in half. And because of that, now the smaller mammals, they were beginning to flourish, which brought in a whole nother set of things. And in just a few months, a few years, these wolves reset the mentality of the park. They reset the environment, the ecosystem of that park, just by introducing 31 top predators. Do you have 31 powerful thoughts? Do you have 31 verses that you know? Do you have 31 of anything? What about one thing a day? 31. Think about that. Now there's 100 packs in the greater Yellowstone area. 100 packs of about 5 to 6 apiece. There's about 1,000 wolves now in that area. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good group. Now some people hate them, because they and that's. I'm not trying to promote or turn you against the wolf. I'm trying to use an example how a pack changed the environment. A pack of thoughts, not just one thought, not one go-to prayer, is going to change the environment of our minds. And we have to change the environment of our minds if we're going to change our believing. See, Jesus Christ is still the top predator against evil. And it's hard to think of Jesus as being a top predator, but he is. We read that so many times. He's here to destroy the works of the devil, to break it down, break it up. He is the alpha male. We're not. No matter how strong you think you are, you're not the alpha male. Jesus Christ is the alpha male. He's been around. He's been alive for 2,000 years. Nobody could say that. He's still in business. We're part of his pack. Some call it the body of Christ. His thoughts are the alpha thoughts. His ways are alpha ways. If we follow his way, we're going to survive and we're going to change the whole landscape of our mind. And we can even help to change the landscape of our friends and family. In fact, we can change the landscape of the entire world. And even bigger than that, we can change the landscape of the universe for an eternity. There's no end to this, folks, but it all starts with putting the right thoughts in our heads. What we bind on earth is bound in heaven. What you bind on earth, what you release on earth is released in heaven. It's tied together, folks. Here's an apex thought to try on. Do you really want to release the power of God in your life? Would you like to unleash the power of God placed within you? You think Jesus Christ understood this? Matthew 18:18. You're going to love this. And this will be from King James. Verily I say unto you, Matthew 18:18, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say to you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where 2 or 3 of them are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. This was done right after Jesus Christ was still in Galilee. He just come down from the Mount of Transfiguration, gone back to Pania or Caesarea Philippi. They left that area. Remember, he healed that one crazy kid, that kid who was so sick and hurt. Then he comes down, here, and his disciples are wondering who's the greatest. I'm the greatest. You the greatest. And they're talking about friendship. They're talking about forgiveness. And then he throws this jewel in here, these 3 verses. See, and Christians so misuse and minimize this section. It's like a wolf in a zoo. It may look good, but it's only for show. It does nothing but eat and poop. So many preachers use this in weddings to bless the bride. Others use it for trying to inspire believers to hang out with each other and to go get it with each other. That's okay. This is some power pack words here, 18, 18, and 19, and 20. It's really flat out amazing. What it's saying in 18 is that our believing affects the universe. If you don't believe, now can anybody believe, Christian and non-Christian? Yes. But if a Christian doesn't believe, will he ever walk or will she ever walk with the power of God? No. It's the key, folks. It's the string. It's the lanyard. It's the rope. It's the doorbell. It's how you get there. If you want to walk with power, you have to go through this door. To get through that door believing, we have to work our self-talk. To get the self-talk, to rechange the environment of ourselves, like the wolves changed the environment of Yellowstone, we have to introduce alpha thoughts. Reintroduce. You know, what you set loose on earth will be set free in heaven. I mean, that's pretty. Now, Jesus Christ is telling these complaining, stubborn disciples this. The word loose in the Greek is the word luo, which means to dissolve, to destroy, to put off. It doesn't mean necessarily to let loose, okay? To loose, to dissolve. It's, you know, just like we read in 1 John 3:8 earlier. You know, we're in sync with the heavens, is what I'm trying to say. As we seek out and destroy those negative thoughts that have kept us at bay our entire lives, we're going to begin to see new growth. It worked in Yellowstone. It'll work with us. Jesus Christ fully understood the importance of apex thinking. See, all the power of the universe is at your fingertips. I'm going to say it again. All the power of the universe is at your fingertips. Wait till you read the rest of these verses. We read them in a little more detail. All we need to do is believe. And in order to believe, we have to think properly. In order to think properly, we have to control our self-talk. Our self-talk has to run in packs. It's a pack of verses, not one. That's the beauty of Scripture. Examples of this alpha Scripture would be like, maybe I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. That's a go-to verse. It's a good one. How about God will do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think? That's a good one. God will do more than you can believe for. That's what it's saying here. Exceeding abundantly above all you can ask or think. When spiritual power is attached to your believing, it goes beyond what you can believe for. How would you like to have more than you can believe for? You got to talk like this. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. Walking uprightly is thinking right. You think right, nothing will be withheld from you. How would you like to have every blessing that could possibly be given to you? You can. Think right. Think right. God is love. That's a good one. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. That's a good one. How about my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory? How rich do you have to be to own the universe? That's your God. That's what we're tapped into. That's loosing. When we hammer down and back off the enemy in our lives, you're never going to eliminate him. Just get him to dissolve back into the brush. It's always going to be a battle, folks. It is written was a popular one Jesus used when he backed down the devil. Then he added another verse along with that. See, he had to verbally say things to back the enemy off. Even Jesus Christ had to. It works. See, if you don't like to memorize verses, why don't you try little pieces of verses, little pieces of truth, like these positive adjectives to help build your believing. It's still the word, but it's in small pieces. I'll just go through the alphabet here. I am awesome, brave, compatible, decisive, energetic, fair, generous, honest, intuitive, kind, loving, modest, nice, optimistic, passionate, quick-witted, reliable, self-confident, thoughtful. unselfish, versatile, warm, Xenian, which means hospitable, youthful, and zealous. I had trouble finding the X, but there was one. But just think, if every day you had a word and you said, this is my word for the day, every month, and bang, and I'm going to be awesome today. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be brave. And then you maybe find a couple of verses that go with that. You can have a lot of fun with this. It's just driving the word into your mind, and it drives the enemy back. You never get rid of the night. Seems to come back every 24 hours, doesn't it? Or every so often. So do what it takes to believe. When you believe, what happens? You receive. Who here doesn't want to receive any of those great blessings? Oh, no hands. That's good. See, all the power of the universe can't stop believing because it's all tied together, folks. In fact, all the power of the universe will propel your believing, will set the charge. See, unleashing the power of the universe starts with releasing top thoughts into our minds and hearts. That's believing. Release your inner wolves. Let's read Matthew 18 through 20 again. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. When we reintroduce alpha thoughts into our minds, things begin to move. Like the wolf packs released back into Yellowstone, they immediately started going to work. The apex predator will set right the environment and make it better for plant and animal. Verse 19, again I say to you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. Verse 20, for where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. These two verses take this section to a whole new level. They take believing to a whole different place. Is it figurative or is it literal? And you've really got to decide which you're going to believe on this one. Most scholars, and I checked into a number of them, consider this figurative language. And when two of you believe together, it will be as if Jesus was there with you. With that type of thinking, my hair begins to slick back and my suit begins to get shiny. Flowers start popping from my lapel. Talk about limits. If you don't think that, you won't get that. I'm telling you, it's because people are so used to not seeing God work in their life that they can't believe it'll work. And then they hear people talk about it and they say you're crazy. You're in lollipop land. Whatever they say. Well, what if we take these verses literally? And there's going to be 3 levels of believing here. 1, individual believing potential. Whenever you or I individually put the focus, time, and energy, whatever you and I individually put focus, time, and energy into, we will absolutely receive. The power of the universe guarantees it. That's verse 18. Verse 19. Now we build from there. Jesus Christ just lays it out. You believe the whole power of the universe is going to happen. You're loosing it. You're binding it. It's going to happen. Number 2, the believing potential of 2. If 2 people can totally agree on anything, be totally in concert, totally in harmony, two mindsets focused as one person, God will make it happen. It's really the first time God gets mentioned here. It's talking about heaven. Now, because anybody can do that first level. Now you get people agreeing in concert, in total focused harmony. Boom! God's going to make it happen. Number 3, the believing potential of the pack. Now, pack is never two. A pack is more than two, just like a family is more than two. When two or more gather their focus, energy, when they gather it and they focus their believing energy like a laser, it doesn't just happen like number 2. Even Jesus Christ begins to get involved in the situation. You don't believe that. You do believe that. That's going to be the determination of how far you're going to go with this spiritual power stuff. You know, Jesus Christ wants to check it out. Jesus Christ will check it out. When a group of people all have that same focus, that same mindset, that same believing, that same love for truth, and it's just like a focused magnifying glass, like a laser, he is there. It's a literal truth that even Jesus Christ will visit your pack if you move in unified focus. What does that mean? Maybe that's the point where our believing meshes with his level of play. We're in the game at that point. That's rarefied air, folks. Most groups never get there because they hate each other. They're jealous of each other. They backbite each other. They think poorly about themselves. It's a whole layer to get here, folks. It's layers. It's 3 layers to get to this point. See, believe it or not, hanging out with the Christ is not out of reach for any group of Christians. Why would he say it? Some of you have seen this, but didn't recognize him. More about this on Wednesday. We're going to read 18 through 20 from the Message of Matthew 18. Take this most seriously. A yes on earth is a yes in heaven. A no on earth is a no in heaven. What you say to one another is eternal. I mean this. When 2 of you get together on anything at all on earth and make a prayer of it, my Father in heaven goes into action. And when 2 or 3 of you are together because of me, you can be sure that I'll be there. Jesus Christ. That's quite a thing to say. Whatever language, whatever version, they're all good. Keep sending in the word. Keep introducing those positives. Keep piling truth, light, love, goodness, greatness into our minds, and it will eradicate what doesn't need to be there. It just works. Nobody had to teach the wolves to be wolves. Nobody has to teach the positives to be powerful. The enemy has to back away when that light's in there. Does it make sense to you? It will do the work for you. Instead of sitting there trying to figure out and work so hard to get your head back together, just put the right words in there. Put as many of those right words in there as you can. Keep introducing pack after pack after pack, and they'll find the corners of your psyche that they need to defend. And they'll keep backing the enemy into deeper and deeper recesses. You'll never eradicate the enemy in this life, but we can keep him at bay. And we can keep our environment great and growing and flourishing. so that there's butterflies and songbirds. And for some of you, plenty of stuff to hunt. It works. You can tell when you're allowing, you can tell that what you're allowing in your head is positive or negative by how? What's coming out of your mouth. If you hear yourself spouting off negatives and putting yourself down or talking bad about other people, it just tells you you don't have enough of the good stuff in there. You have beta thoughts instead of alpha thoughts. It's your governor. It's your litmus test. It's your pH test. When you hear yourself being negative, it just means you have too many, you're allowing the encroachment of the enemy to gnaw down your believing. Your base is being whittled away, little bit by little bit by little bit. If it's negative, you're going to be negative. If it's powerful, if it's apex, if it's epic, it's building you up, it's edifying you. And then I can guarantee that you're putting on more alpha thoughts than negative thoughts. It works. Just like it worked in Yellowstone, it'll work in you. Most of you have seen this stuff before. When you're putting more of the word on and thinking it more, you saw more and more good stuff happen. Duh. This is why. The enemy just gnaws it down, and we get into this rut where we just allow it. It's not worth the trouble anymore. I can't memorize verses anymore, or I don't want to memorize anymore. I don't want to think every day that I'm awesome, or go through the list. I don't care what you do. You just have to do it if you want to build your believing. And if you want to walk with power, you have to build that believing. It works. Just like it worked in Yellowstone, it'll work in you. Jesus Christ and the words of God are still the top predator against evil. And we're the ones to perpetuate it, to keep the pack growing. It's not his job anymore. Jesus Christ is the alpha male, but it's our job to perpetuate and to move the pack. Each one of us moves a different part of that pack, or a different pack, so to speak. Think of one body. Close in on your excellence. Today we saw how the reintroduction of special words, apex thoughts into our personal ecosystems will allow our believing to reclaim its rightful turf. Once those specific words are set free into our inner awareness in the proper amounts, they will change the environment of our brains. Want to see the power of God and the power of the universe at your fingertips? Want to actually run with the Christ? Then believe like a wolf. God bless.